It's another show, but it's not just another show. We have I would call it PI Entertainment royalty on our
Royalty.
one of
Okay.
the shows. One of the shows I remember growing up, and it's like mandatory. If you're a Pacific Islander, you it's mandatory that you see Once Were Warriors. So today we have on the line Rena Owen. We're going to catch up on all the things that are going on in her busy life, and we're going to talk a little bit about the vaccine and the vaccine in Hollywood. Really, I think that there's a lot of people that are some people are outspoken as public figures, and other people kind of lay back and don't say a whole lot. So we wanted to get kind of the Hollywood or the Pollywood perspective from Rena Owen. Naki, you want to read off our short list of our shortened list of accomplishments of somebody that is truly a PI legend in the media.
No.
Yes, we are so honored to have Rena Owen. Rena is an award winning actress, writer, director, and producer. Born in New Zealand, Bay of Islands, Rena is Maori, Welsh, and European descent, one of 9 children. Is that
Yeah.
right? Oh my
Yeah. Yeah.
gosh.
Catholics.
Catholics in the rural town of North Island Bay of Islands. Rena trained at the Actors Institute in London and worked extensively in British theater. Rena's work in theater includes acting, writing, and directing. She also worked as a dramaturg. Did I say that right?
Yeah,
Dramaturg?
you did. Dramaturg.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
as she was a founding member of Takirua Theater. Her role in Once Were Warriors as the leading role of Beth Hickett alongside Tilmura Morrison earned her rave reviews and multiple international awards, including Best Actress at the Montreal World Film Festival. Further acting accolades include Best Supporting Actress nominations for her role in New Zealand TV series Cover Story and an AFI Best Supporting Actress nomination in her role in Rolf de Heer's film Dance Me to My Song, and so much, much more. Rena, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And kia ora, talofalava, and ni hao, and malo, and aloha to all our listeners. I'm seeing some messages there on the side here. Um, so I'm not sure if we're supposed to. I think that's Tino, one of the whānau over there in San Francisco. But hey, I'm very happy to be here in Tautoko to support our PIs, our brothers and sisters, our Pacific Island brothers and sisters, our Polynesians at a yeah, at this moment in time.
Yeah,
Yes.
we wanted to make sure that there's so many technical issues that go on with Zoom and Restream and all those things. We wanted to make sure that we had uninterrupted time. So to get that, make sure that we have the good bandwidth going on. We are audio only, which is good with us because we really want to hear your words and hear your thoughts on the vaccine. But what you do so many things, writer, producer, actress. What is taking up the majority of your time right now?
Would acting has been taking up the majority of my time, but I am going to backtrack a bit because it kind of all feeds into what we're all here for. I knew growing up, so I was biracial.
Mhm.
My dad was Maori, my mum was Palangi, European, and there weren't that many biracial families in my little hometown. My little hometown is 97% Polynesian, so we were one of the few biracial whānaus, families. But I knew growing up that I was born to be creative. I was, always performing in the Maori Culture Club, with our Maori traditional singing and dancing, and I was published when I was 8 years old, entering a poetry contest, and I wrote short stories for school, and I performed in all the high school musicals while I was during my teenage years. So I knew as a young person that I had found my place in the world, that place where I felt that I belonged, that I loved, and I totally enjoyed. I knew I wasn't cut out to sit behind a desk. Engari, when it came to me leaving high school at the end of the 70s, three very important factors. I was brown. We did not have brown faces on our TV screens or in our cinemas or on our stages. And as a woman, my only career choices were I could be a secretary, a teacher, or a nurse. And I think that was very common for most women around the world. You could be a secretary, a teacher, or a nurse. Well, I applied for teaching and nursing. I got accepted for both. And I actually moved from my little rural town to the big smoke, Auckland, the main city in New Zealand. And and I for 3.5 years, and I qualified as a general and obstetric nurse. So I've got some vaccine stories for you way back then, to coming through the medical system. And I'd actually gone to London at the age of 22 with these dreams to go to med school to become a doctor. But hey, I got to London. I was young. I did what young people did. It was the first taste of freedom. I got into some mischief, all sorts of things. We haven't got time for it, but basically, it led me to drama school. Instead of signing up to med school, I knew that I still had all of this creativity and passion, and that I really wanted to still be an actor and a writer. So I committed to doing that at the age of 25. And my father was, oh, it's a shame about your medical career. But once I started sending him reviews from newspapers, he was quite proud of my new career. So to all you young people out there, follow your heart, follow your dreams. That's where God puts the DNA, I believe, in all of us, a blueprint, that passion for whatever it is you've been brought onto this planet to do. Um, so I knew back then in the 80s, I started in 1985, 86, and I knew then no one was going to be writing roles for Polynesian girls. So I started writing my own roles. And so I started writing stage plays and creating vehicles for myself. And I just had a hunger to learn the craft. And then I went back to New Zealand and just continued to do a lot of theatre, a lot of television. I was a founding member of Māori theatre. I was involved in the first ever TV drama series written by Māori, made by Māori, for Māori. And, when I look at my 35-year career, I've been a part of a lot of firsts, whether that was the first short film to be made by Tahitians in Tahiti, or the first film to be made in Rotuma by Rotuman. So I've always that's been a passion for me, is to work with Polynesian Pacific Islanders, and to tell our stories, and to pass on my skills to those who are hungry to learn and are committed to this industry. Because now this is a great time to be Polynesian. Now, being ethnically ambiguous. I mean, I got Samoan friends who are getting auditions every week. There's so many roles for Polynesians. So this is a great time to come into this industry. And it's like any industry, it doesn't fall out of the sky. When you're young, you kind of hope it's going to fall out of the sky, but it doesn't. You've got to do the work. You've got to get out of bed. You've got to go to school or do workshops, learn your craft. Everything in this world is a craft. Nobody gets to wake up and go, oh, I'm a doctor, or I'm an engineer, or I'm this, or I'm an actor. It's you learn a craft. Yeah, of course, having a God-given talent to start with, well, that's a kind of 101. But my industry, my job is portraying humanity. That's what we do as storytellers. We try to portray humanity, and humanity, as we know, in this last year or so, has kind of gone loopity loop with this whole um, COVID vaccine, and it's not the first time. I mean, the first vaccine ever created was in the 1700s for smallpox.
Right.
When I was nursing people who didn't have the vaccine for polio and were in iron lungs, and the rest of their lives were spent in iron lungs because they didn't get vaccinated. So we've seen the results of COVID, the deaths and the debilitation, and um, it's just something I'm not going to play with the gift of life. I'm very grateful for my God given gift of life, and it's not something I'm going to mess with. I mean, early I did a film recently, Fina, portraying one of our most famous um, Maori icons, Fina Cooper. Her father died of influenza.
Mm.
So influenza was the turn of the century flu. So if it wasn't for vaccines, we'd still be having polio, smallpox, influenza, and all these other debilitating diseases.
Right.
But God also gave us science. God also gave us medicine. And I think if I'm talking specifically to our Polynesian communities, you know, we are in a vulnerable category
Right.
because the two things that in New Zealand, you know, I'm speaking for what I see and what I know to be true at home.
Mm-hmm.
Obesity and diabetes are so sky high amongst our Pacific Islanders, and the majority of people that have died from COVID have been obese.
Mm.
And when I studied pre-colon, because I've developed a pre-colonization film called Behind the Tattooed Face, and our ancestors around all the South Pacific had the perfect diet. There was no indigenous red meat. There was no sugar, and our ancestors were active. We lived off the sea, the kaimoana, fish, pippies, tohiro, urchins. We lived off poultry, birds, and we lived off roots and ferns. And that was our ancestors' diets. And when we look at the images of our ancestors, they were cut. I mean, they were lean. These
Yes.
guys were warriors, and so we don't actually have the gene in our DNA that breaks down a lot of the Western diet. So it goes to our hips, or it goes wherever it goes. And, unfortunately, even more so now at home in New Zealand, because of poverty. And there are a lot of families living in poverty, and a lot of Polynesian families. And so they're buying the cheap junk food.
Yes.
And we childhood diabetes in New Zealand is killing our children. And so, this is why a lot of our people are in a vulnerable category, because your body can't fight off the diseases if
Right.
you're living in a compromised health situation. And I've known friends of family, or family of friends, who have had weight issues, young,
Mm.
dying in their early 30s,
Mm.
or another one had diabetes. These are people who shouldn't be dying. So I really feel quite passionate about trying to get our people. It's not, if allow me to say this,
Yes.
this is not the mark of the beast. All right. I know there's a lot of fear mongering out there going, oh, this is a chip. If you get the vaccine, you're going to be implanted with a chip. No, there are a lot of things that have to be in place before we get to the end of the days. A lot of things that need to happen before
Yeah.
we get to that. This is it's like flu used to kill people. When flu first came about, it was virulent and it killed people until they came up with a flu vaccine. So this is it's nasty, and it's not something you want to mess with. So I would encourage people, if they can, um, if you don't want to do it for yourself, then do it for the people you love.
Yes.
Do it for your family, especially our elders. And that's something I love about our Polynesian culture is our respect and our love of our elders. We take care of our elders. Me and my bestie, we took one of my elderly neighbors to a barbecue yesterday, and he's like, oh, what have I done to deserve this? And I said, well, this we take care of our elders, Larry. And our elders are vulnerable because they're old and their immune systems are weak. So if you're not going to get vaccinated, then stay away from people, because it's getting to that point where it's a bit selfish to not be vaccinated now.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think the one of the things that from a Pacific Islander perspective, a Polynesian perspective, or just Pasifika is like, what's our role? What role do we play in our family, or what role do we play in our community? And it seems like a lot of the perspective of that is, I may be 19 or 20, but I live in a multi-generational home, so my responsibility to the family or to the community is to protect the people that are at most at risk. I think you bring up a really good point with that. Is like, what is our role? And I like the way that you talked about, some people would use religion as a reason not to, right? And then you're saying God gave us science, God gave us vaccines. That may be the gift from God that we have present for us. Um, Real quick, I did want to move back to. I was going to ask if being one of the first big name uh, Polynesian or Pacific Islander actors or actresses, you're the trailblazer. And now you see. I was going to ask if you see more opportunity for us um, in Hollywood, and it sounds like there are more roles. And it's interesting now that like even the Rock stunt double, he's famous for being a secondary role. So you would say that you're seeing more
compared
in
to
Hollywood?
absolutely, compared to when I started. Um, I mean, the majority, there was only a couple of us Maori actors and only a couple of Samoan
Right.
actors in New Zealand. And, we had the Maori Theatre Company and my Samoan, like Oscar and all the funny Samoans. They all were part of that first trailblazing Samoan theatre company. And well, now in New Zealand, we have Maori television. Now you have Samoan television. Now you've got all this representation, and our drama schools are full of Pacific Islanders. And I'll tell you right now, there's 3 productions going on that are all looking for Polynesians, and there's not enough of them. So they're having to go to New Zealand to try and get to cast out of New Zealand. So you've got an NCIS Hawaii, which
Yeah.
has just started shooting in Hawaii. So
Wow.
there've been multiple auditions on that for Pacific Islanders. You got Dwayne Johnson's The Rock. I mean, 2 of those actors had to find 2 of those actors, the mother and the grandmother in New Zealand. So what we've got, and there's a lot of PI uh, actors here in LA, but there's not many of us, and the opportunities are there, and particularly for the youth, for the young ones, and so I know this NCIS Hawaii wanted to cast them Pacific Islander out in New Zealand for one of the series regulars, but it didn't work out for date wise. You currently got a Polynesian, a Maori in F9. Vin Diesel's Fast and Furious. Young Diesel, the young guy, Vinnie Bennett, who I just did a movie with in New Zealand, he plays the young Vin Diesel. He plays the young, yeah. So, there's a lot of us go, and of course, you've all seen Cliff Curtis and Temiata Morrison is all over Star Wars, and um, Simone Kessel, another Maori actress of ours, is being cast in the latest Star Wars. You got Keisha Castle Hughes from Whale Rider, who's a series regular on FBI's Most Wanted. So there are roles out there for us, but
Yeah.
you got to have 2 things. You got to have the talent, and you got to show up with some skill, a bit of craft, and so that's where discipline comes in. And the ones that I see making waves and doing well are those ones that are pursuing it, taking it seriously as a craft. You know, they're the ones, and there's so much opportunity for our young people, and just not enough of us. I mean, they're bringing them out, and as I say, they have to go down to when they can't find them in LA, then they're going down to New Zealand. You know, so it's about it's easier now for our youth, our rangatahi, because now you don't have to get into the room. You can self tape. You can submit yourself. You know, so if there's someone out there um, who is really, if this is their dream, then it's like any industry. You got to go, this is my dream. This is what I've got to do to help my dream come true. Because as I said earlier, unfortunately, I'm sorry, it does not fall out of the skies.
Right.
You have to, you know, when I look at the opportunities I've been blessed with, I position myself for those roles. Once We're Warriors is a great example. As I said to you earlier, I in London, I started going to drama school. I wrote plays for myself. I set out to learn my craft, to learn how to become a good actor was my intention. And I did a lot of theatre. I didn't make a penny, but I was doing what I loved. I waited tables, I cleaned toilets, I did whatever odd jobs I had to pay my bills. Because you know, when you focused on your goal or your dream, it doesn't matter what you do to pay your rent. You just know that you're waiting tables to pay your rent right now. But really, the main thing is I'm getting to go to drama school and do courses and learn how to become an actor. And so I did it 8 years of a lot of unpaid work in theatre, writing and acting. And that was part of me doing being a dramaturg. Because what a dramaturg is you sit there with your writer and the director, and you act as that liaison between actors and the director to say, okay, let's try and do the scene this way. Because my mentor taught me in when I first my first years, she said, look, if you're gonna do other work, to for supplement for income, then she said try and do it within the industry. So dramaturging was something I could have a frontline seat, be a stage manager. I had a frontline row watching the most best actors in the world. You know, so it's like if you want to be a singer, be a backup singer for one of the best and learn and watch them. And that's what I did. So when Once Were Warriors finally came, by God, I was so ready for that. I read the book, you know, I read the book 2 years prior to that audition. And I remember thinking when I put that book down, I thought, whoever wrote this book lived that life because it was so authentic. And I thought, if this book is ever turned into a movie, that is a role to die for.
Yes.
And then I heard this company had gotten the rights to make the movie. And I was doing a stage play in Maori theatre and playing a similar character. So I had the audacity, and this is you have a lot of audacity when you're young. You know, you get a bit more shy when you get older. But I rang this company and I said, "Oh, I'm Rena Owen, and I'm coming to Auckland in the stage play called Whatunaro Nora Te Tangata, you know, Toitu Te Whenua, this Māori play, and I would love to invite you to come to watch this play to see my work."
Mm.
And that producer showed up and he said, "Oh, yeah, you'd be a great Beth." And he said, "Well, we haven't got our director yet." Um, and I did that. I did that because I read about Whoopi Goldberg, how Whoopi Goldberg had went after the writer, Alice, who'd written The Color Purple. And
Mm.
she pursued that project and wrote to the writer and wrote to the writer and said, I want to be in the film of this book. And so that's what I was meaning earlier, is you help to position yourself.
Yes.
And I mean, I still auditioned along with hundreds of other women. I auditioned for that role, but the one thing I had was craft, because I'd been working in theatre for 8 years, learning my ABCs, D's and E's. I had crafts. And so the director knew I had the personal strength and the skill to carry the role. And of course, that opened the door to an international global career for me, for Temiera Morrison, for Cliff Curtis, for Lee Tamahori. And you just got to keep at it. You know, especially, I think in those years, they didn't know what to do with me in the late 90s because I'd go in for auditions and they'd call my agent and go, she's really good, but what is she? She's not Latina. She don't, you know, whereas now, ever,
Yeah.
ever since Oscars So White happened, now the majority of auditions are for people of color, ethnically ambiguous. So it's a fantastic time for us. And now you've got a lot of very successful Pacific Islanders, Samoans, Maoris writing their own scripts, making their own movies. Cousins. Cousins is a film made
Yes.
written by Maori, come from another novel by Patricia Grace, made by two Maori, written by Maori, made by Maori directors. Aboriginal filmmaker Warwick's having a great career. Our Samoan brothers, Oscar Knightley and David Farney and all of those pros, they're doing a lot. They're creating this whole series about the Black Panthers, which was the first movement of the Samoan Black Panthers and the Dawn Raids. So
Yes.
they're creating these opportunities. So it's what I'd say to everybody here. You know, it's we've got to somehow start creating those same opportunities here. And I mean, Dwayne created opportunities in his TV series, and I'm sure there's more to come. I know there's films being developed in Hawaii. There's got to be. Look, I've just finished. You know, after Sons of Anarchy, I had to watch Mayans, and I thought, come on, we've got to have Sons of Samoa.
Right. Yes. I mean, I love that now. I think that now it's a little bit easier than when you were, going to auditions. I just think that, like you said, it's a great time to be a Pacific Islander in entertainment. And just, you really, like you said, you have to create your own road, try to create your own path to get you to where you're doing what you love. So I love that you're passionate about that. And really, it's sometimes it takes people a long time to find what they're passionate about. And I love that you knew right away. And it just makes for a happier life when you know right away what you want to do. Would you
Yes, but
agree?
you know, I had that divergence because I couldn't pursue it initially because there was no opportunity for me as a brown girl. There were no opportunities then. As I say, now our TV's full of brown faces,
Oh,
and our drama school is full of Pacific Islanders, and so now there's a lot of opportunities, and every show has in New Zealand, every show. We're lucky there because it's a small population of only 5 million. So the visibility, you can't, you can't not see it.
yeah.
Whether it's billboards, whether it's our sporting heroes, whether it's our news readers, and these are on our networks. And there are a lot of us. Well, we've look at our parliament. I mean, our parliament is so diversified with Maori and Palangi and Tongan and Asian, and we have to be held more accountable to some degrees down there because it's so visible. You can't not be represented in
Right.
New Zealand. Here, I developed a project for a Samoan family in LA. And in my research, and this was a while ago, but 10 years ago, 8% of the American population is PI. It's probably more by now. But the only time we would really see them 10 years ago would be on the sport field, would be football, would be
Yes.
You know, Dwayne Johnson really was our only figure there. And I think it's really only till recent that people are starting to learn, well, actually, no, he's not just black. He's Samoan. You know?
Someone. Yes.
Yeah. But back then, the only ones I could find that were public figures were in football teams.
Exactly, exactly. And it with the current jobs that you've been doing and you're in and where you're going to work, are they required for you to get it or vaccinated or
Yes. Yes. So in brief, just to go back a few years, I did this pilot in 2016 for Siren, which I'm sure if a lot of young people are listening, they would have either heard or seen Siren.
I
And this
love
was
it.
well, this was in my advantage. I didn't know this when I auditioned for it. But
Mhm.
the fact that the character I was to play was a hybrid. So
Yeah.
my ethnicity was perfect for the role. And I did not know this till I met the showrunner and the show creator. And they said, we always thought, because they were big fans of Once Were Warriors. And
Mm-hmm.
they had both said, oh my God, she'd be perfect for Helen. And I didn't really understand why until like episode 8 or 7 or 8, where you learnt
Right.
that mermaids are a matriarchal warrior society. So that's how the creators had linked Once Were Warriors, Beth Ecker, to like, oh, she'd be the perfect hybrid. Of course, they didn't tell me or my agent or casting that, you know, I was the top of their list. And so that's where being ethnically diverse was and looking different and being different. And the one thing, a great lesson I learned from that, and I think it's true for a lot of creatives in the arts, is that you are defined by your difference, and that it's not so easy when you're young because we're insecure and we want to belong and we want to fit in. But as you get older, you realize it's your difference that defines you. And so I did Siren, and I was also doing back in LA a reoccurring role on Seth MacFarlane's show, The Orville. And I'd been in New Zealand Christmas last year, and I came back in February to do the Orville, 2 episodes of the Orville, and I got caught in the lockdown. I got caught in the shutdown here,
Oh wow.
and I'd always had this film booked in New Zealand, so I went back in July to do the Fina Cooper movie, which is going to be, I think, a pretty cool movie.
Yeah.
And Disney, who were the owners of Freeform, insisted that I be back by end of September. So it looked more than likely that we were going to go back to Vancouver for season 4. But I went down to New Zealand. I did the 2 weeks quarantine, got out to go to work, and we got locked down again. So it took us 6 months to shoot this movie because we were in and out of lockdowns. There were no vaccines in New Zealand back then, and they're only starting to roll them out now. But we had to shoot around. You know, we got temperatures checked, tested. I didn't socialize because I knew if I got sick, the film would
Mm-hmm.
fall over or be severely compromised. Um, and I was supposed to contractually be back by end of September. And then the third quarterly earnings in August, Disney announced they took a 3.4 billion, not million, billion, $3.4 billion loss. The next day our show was cancelled. And so
Wow.
were a few others. And the following month, Disney said they were just going to focus on their streaming platform, Disney Plus. But see, if it hadn't have got cancelled, I would have had to have pulled out of the New Zealand film. So you've
Mm-hmm.
got to trust that these things work out as they're supposed to work out. So I stayed down there and I finished the movie. And I had friends from back in my theatre days. And that's another important thing about my industry, but I think every industry is the same. It's about relationships. So people I worked for in my early years who had supported me as a young actor were now making this TV, this Maori TV series, and said, "Oh, we'd love you to come and do this role for us, sis." And so I did that for them, and then I did a stage play because I didn't want to come back to LA in winter. It was COVID was out of control, and
Mhm.
it was the first time I got Christmas, New Year with my family, and I came back in April to do the Orville. And they asked if I could get vaccinated before I came back, and I said no because the vaccine still wasn't available. So as soon as I got off the plane, they just said walk into CVS. I got vaccinated. That's how easy it is, people. Do you know people
Exactly.
are lining up in New Zealand? People are just, they're now starting to riot and protest about not being able to get the vaccine.
Wow.
You can just walk in a CVS. You can walk in a Walmart. It doesn't cost a penny. They're just, well, hey, boy, if I'd have waited, I would have entered the $1 million lotto here in California. But, the Orville insisted that I get vaccinated. And so I got my first vaccine, and we got tested every day on set. You
Wow.
can't work in my industry if you're not vaccinated. You have to be, and even once you're vaccinated, you're still tested every day. And between scenes, you have to put on masks. So you still have, they're still practicing COVID protocol. And you kind of get annoyed with it. But as our boss said, it's the reason they haven't had any outbreaks of COVID on the Fox studio lot because they're so strict. Everybody has to be vaccinated to work. So,
That's
you know,
awesome.
yeah, well, it's like recently, a friend if might have had the opportunity to go to Hawaii, and I said, "You got to get vaccinated. They won't let you on the plane, or they won't
Hmm.
let you into production if you're not vaccinated." So, but it does save lives. That's
Yeah.
the bottom line. Is the vaccine saves lives. There's very few people have come through, and those who have survived are living with different issues and problems. So it's just, I just wouldn't mess with it. I just, yeah, I just wouldn't risk it. I'm not that, because I know one thing: God doesn't like arrogance,
Exactly.
and God doesn't like pride. And I'm a very proud person, and I believe our cultures are very proud,
Yes.
and that's where the title "Once Were Warriors" came from.
Mm.
And thank God our ancestors, my ancestors, were proud, because when the early colonizers came, they did not lie down, they did not lay down, they did not surrender. They fought. And we had 30 years of what's known as the New Zealand land wars, to the
Yeah.
point where the British eventually said, "Oh my goodness, these Maoris, these natives aren't going to go away. They're not going to submit. We can't subdue them." And so they came up with the Treaty of Waitangi, and this was a document from 100 and God, 70 years ago now. That was a legally binding document that
Yeah.
said Maori allowed the British colonizer to live in New Zealand and live as one. If we did not have that Treaty of Waitangi, we would not have the visibility and the power that we had back in New Zealand. And that was pride. But we have to learn when pride is serving us and when pride is we're just being knuckleheads.
Yeah.
You
That's
Yeah,
know,
New Zealand's one of the few Pacific islands that didn't succumb 100% to colonization. They were able to meet the British on their own terms. That's history that we should all know. I had a quick question as we're talking about that on being on this end of being a trailblazer on starting in the late 80s, early 90s, and now looking at where you're at now. Are you having more fun now being on this end of the trailblazing as you were?
oh, I gotta be honest, brother. I'm kind of, when I'm reading these scripts and I'm seeing all these fantastic roles for young people, I'm thinking, damn, you know, I wish I could have another go at it in my 20s, but
yeah.
you can't. You just, I'm blessed and I'm grateful to have had the career I've had. um, and there are it's. I remember my auntie saying to me when I was in my youth, and they'd all go with regret. They go, "Oh God, if I only knew what I know now at your age, how different their lives would have been." And now I'm saying that same thing to my nieces and nephews. And that's life.
Yeah.
That's the cycle of life, and there are no shortcuts, unfortunately. And you can tell youth, as many people told me, you know, you can till the cows come home. But
Yeah.
people have got to make their own mistakes, and it's hard watching it sometimes. But
Yeah.
that's just the journey of life, and the journey of life also involves evolution, and we have evolved. Look at where we are now at as Pacific Islanders. We are no longer stuck in the corner on the ukulele. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I remember when I first went over to Hawaii for the Hawaii International Film Festival, and I was desperate to meet a Hawaiian. I
Mhm.
didn't meet any Hawaiians, and the only time I actually saw Hawaiians were the ukulele group in the corner. And that's where Māoridom was in the 40s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. We were the entertainers. And it was quite similar in a lot of ways too for Black African Americans. They were the entertainers. That film I watched recently, Green Book.
Mm.
God, that was a great film. So he was good enough to be their pianist and entertain them, but he wasn't allowed to sit in the restaurant and eat dinner in the restaurant with the people.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way, and I'm excited for our youth.
Yeah.
And there is a lot to be grateful that, hey, we're still here. And as long as you're still here, I always believe that as long as you're still here and you're breathing the breath of life, then God's still got work for you to do.
Yes.
And so, I am now at a time. The joy
Yes.
of being in my mature years is that I'm able to, you're more able to be fully of service to the young ones because you've had your moment. That doesn't mean I don't want another moment in my old age. Of course I do.
Yeah. Well,
But you
we
start realizing the importance of sharing all the knowledge you've accumulated in your lifetime and
yeah.
passing it on and passing the baton and helping someone. It's all about that. Every single one of us can look back and go, God, if it wasn't for that person, or if it wasn't for that person, or that person, or this would never have happened, or that would never have happened. And
Right.
it's a good life, and I personally am not going to risk the gift of life on a virus that can
Right.
be defeated.
You're
A virus
exactly
that can
right.
be defeated.
We
So,
appreciate your time, Rena, and we know you're busy, and we don't want to keep you, but we thank you so much for coming here and to share your story and to talk about how we should be vaccinated just to save our own lives and the people that we love. We appreciate you, and we're so grateful for you.
oh look, thank you for this opportunity. I'm a very proud poly girl.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank
Oh,
you so
you're
so
most
much.
welcome. And
God bless you.
alofa, thank you. And God bless you and all the listeners. And alofa, aloha, aroha, love. Love people. Just love. It is all about love.
Thank
And
you
just
so much.
just uh, just protect yourself and just be the best you is what the greatest lesson I think of from a mature woman is going, yeah, what you would tell yourself when you were younger. But it's a journey, and only you people can help you and guide you and be there for you. But it's a bit like the vaccine. At the end of the day, it's a choice, and God gave us the choice. And I personally think God would want us to choose life.
Yes.
So God bless you, everyone.
God bless
Anytime,
you.
Thank you,
Anytime.
Rena. We love you.
Thank you, Rena.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Next
Thank
time when it's cooler in LA and I can actually put on some makeup and not sit here sweating, we'll come on camera and do a Q&A because I can see some people have left notes.
Oh yes, Malo is on, just singing your praise. She's saying that she loves you.
Thank
And
you, sis.
we had a Phil Alabasi who made his own road. He's an entrepreneur, a Samoan barber who opened his own shop and created his own road, like you spoke about. So many people are on. Yvette and Maury Manamel, they're saying hi, Auntie.
Yeah, Maury. Hey, Maury. Hey, Maury. Hello to everybody over there in the Bay Area. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're so welcome.
You. Thank you.
Anytime. And I think we'll do it again when Fina comes out.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Cooper, very briefly. That's going to be a seminal movie.
Oh, it's going to be amazing.
Cooper was one of our Māori trailblazers.
Warriors.
When she was 80 years old, led the land march from the top of the North Island all the way down to Wellington to Parliament for Māori, to get Māori land back.
We cannot wait to see that.
So we got to do some stuff around that film when it comes out later this year.
Definitely. Thank you so much again. Take care. God bless you.
God bless. God bless. Pasifika. Pa.
Pa.
Pa. Ka kite.